Hello, explorers, and welcome to the only international Star Wars podcast covering almost half the world, but only about 0.5% of the galaxy. I'm Jimmy the Jedi, and as always, thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the Star Wars universe. If you get a chance, don't forget to give us a rating and like, share, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. I thought I would try something new today because I have been left all alone at the controls once again. Instead of telling you one of my amazing jokes, how about a Would You Rather Star Wars edition? So, would you rather have a loyal Wookiee sidekick or a sassy droid like R2D2 or BD1? Let us know in the comments on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you are watching, listening to the show. That's a tough one, folks. I'd love to hear it, though. Now, don't worry, Jack and Charlie will be back soon, but this week I'm joined by a special guest and a new friend of the show, and we're going to talk about some crazy Star Wars theory. So without further ado, let's head to the main show, shall we?
It's just a simple jump to hyperspace and we're there. What's so tricky about that?
Plenty. Can't plot a direct course to Kessel. You might want to buckle up, baby.
All right, folks, I'd like to welcome a new friend to the show, Justin. Just found out his name. Always dealing with people's Instagram handles, but we got the nerdy bookshelf here. Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey,
You always
thanks for
pop
having
in.
me.
You always pop into our live show on Jedi and the Mailman. So I thought let's have you on. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your Star Wars fandom, and then I'm going to probably attack you with a few Star Wars questions.
All right. But yeah, in case you didn't hear, my name's Justin. I am behind the Nerdy Bookshelf, which is a just random little Instagram that I've been running since I think 2017. It was started out as just a way to keep track of books I read because I got my face in a book every single day. I had no idea Bookstagram was a thing until I started discovering other accounts and started making friends along the way. As far as being a Star Wars person, that's something that's just been in my blood since day one. I grew up with a family that loved Star Wars. Like my parents were big fans and always had it playing in the background. They went to all the movies. So I grew up with it always on the TV. No matter what I was doing, it was always on the background. So I have the original trilogy memorized. And then seeing the new ones come out, or like seeing the special editions come out and reading all the books back before Disney had bought it, when all we had was books and no new movies or anything like that. But yeah, been enjoying the ride ever since, watching our beautiful universe expand in so many different ways. But yeah, I've been a lifelong fan, and even if I try to dislike Star Wars for certain reasons, or I always come back to it. It's something I can't get away from.
Nice. Yeah, we just kind of talked about that last week with my dark period in between before the prequels and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm looking at your Instagram and you got some Brandon Sanderson on there. You got all kinds of good stuff. So folks, it's not just Star Wars. If you love books, check out the Nerdy Bookshelf. Because you got quite a collection on here. It's pretty impressive.
Well, besides reading Star Wars, which I've kind of taken a little break from, I have dove into my other love, which is fantasy, that I've been reading since 15 years old when I discovered The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings for the first time. Ever since then, that awoke in my eyes too. So many great fantasy books out there. So I haven't stopped reading that as well. Fantasy, comics, sci-fi, even classic and modern fiction.
Nice.
I love what the imagination can create and the stories that we tell each other.
Absolutely. So. I think that's the whole thing with sci-fi and fantasy and all that stuff, like just the imagination of it. Very cool. Like I said, go check them out. So here's a couple Star Wars questions. Can you tell me, you may have just told us, what's your favorite Star Wars memory or your first? And you can give me both if you want. Like, what's the first time you remember anything Star Wars in your life, or what's your favorite?
Well, I will preface it by saying that even though I don't remember it, my first Star Wars experience was seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater. My parents told me that they took me to see it, and I was maybe 10 months old, 11 months. So I probably slept through the whole thing, but I was there. I was present. So I can count that, right, as seeing it in theater.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, watching them on VHS growing up, burning out the VCR because I wanted to watch the entire trilogy, 3 movies in a row, 6 hours of television there. But I would say earliest memories are seeing it and watching it at home, just sitting in my living room, just being totally entranced by it. Or another great, great memory growing up is going and seeing the special edition that were released back in, I think, 98. Seeing those with my brother and my dad and just going and seeing them over and over and over and finally like absorbing them on the big screen for the first time. That was incredible to me. And then I think at the same time, I have this weird memory of like Taco Bell was doing something alongside of it. And so we would go to the local Taco Bell and they had so much Star Wars stuff going on because the movies had been re-released. And I remember sitting there getting the meal with like, I think there were Star Wars toys involved or something that they were putting out. But I remember the TVs inside Taco Bell were playing the Ewoks cartoon. And so I sat there just loving the Ewoks cartoon going, oh my God, I didn't even know this was a thing. Yeah. So that's one of my earliest, most fond memories of it. And then of course, I think like at 16, I discovered the EU universe and dove into all of the Han Solo books I can read, all of the Young Jedi Knights with the Solo twins, which I wish still existed in canon because those are some great stories. Yeah, and just diving into all those books and comics that we had at that time.
Nice. Yeah, because I guess I should have asked you that. I mean, we talked a little bit off air, but you talked a lot about the EU books. Do you have a hard time with that? Because like for me personally, like when Star Wars kind of ended in '83, I had the Heir to the Empire, but that was really the only like the EU I'd ever really read, and then I kind of got away from it and then came back. And by the time I started really getting the books again, Disney had done what they did, and struggle with it at all. Like, I mean, you're obviously like you're an impassioned reader, so I wonder, do you struggle with that? Like sometimes when you see something, or because a lot of people are very, very angry about it. I kind of lucked out personally because like I didn't read a bunch then, so I don't have that connection. But I'm just curious because I haven't really talked to too many people who've read it probably as extensively as you have.
Well, I feel like at the time when it happened in Disney, like was it 2012, 2013 when Disney officially announced that like that's no longer canon. At the time, myself and a lot of other people, felt like it was a slap in the face to all the people who had supported Star Wars for so long. Like I feel like even though I'm sure they had a plan, Disney should have recognized that. Like we have supported Star Wars is alive because of the fans. That's why it lasted as long as it did. However, over time, I came to accept it. However, I may be alone in this. I may have people who agree with me. My opinion, it's all canon. Everything. If you love it enough, the EU is still canon. The expanded universe, it's still canon. Those books that you love, that are those paperbacks from the 90s that are still sitting on your shelf, those are canon if you love them enough. And you could just say it's a separate reality, or like the Marvel MCU does. It's a different dimension, different Earth, whatever it is. It's still canon to you.
I like that. No, I like that. That's a good positive way to handle that. I like that because a lot of people just like to yell and scream. Because I mean, I love Plagueis, the Plagueis book, and Kenobi by John Jackson Miller. Like I love those stories, But I'm like, oh man, it's a bummer. But we'll get into that when we get into some of this article we're going to talk about.
Well, all right, I would like to add to that though. Like they do keep pulling from the EU and pulling that back into canon for a reason, because those are damn good stories. They are incredible, and they keep pulling the stories and the characters and the events back into canon for a reason, because there were brilliant minds writing those stories.
Oh yeah, you look at some of the names that wrote some of those first, and it's pretty impressive. And that's always wondered too, is when Kathleen Kennedy said we don't really have the background like Marvel does. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like you have books on top of books. So
you have 45 years of books. Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But all right. So your rainy day, I'm gonna have to add book to this too. What's your rainy day movie, show, and or book? You have to tell me your book. Like if you had time to read any book in your collection, what would it be? And then,
Oh wow, a rainy day one.
yeah.
Okay, if I'm gonna answer book, if I had enough time in a day to sit down and read an entire book in a day, like, are you talking like comfort book on a
Yeah,
rainy
like
day?
what would be like what's that one that you know, kind of in the same concept of like what movie do you put on or TV show do you put on Star Wars that's, comforting to
Hmm.
you or your go-to, I guess. Not necessarily your favorite, but your go-to. Or it could be
Okay,
your favorite.
if are we talking Star Wars or any book?
That's totally up to you.
If I'm gonna do a rainy day book, I would sit down, and if I had time in the day to read the entire thing, I would sit down and read Fellowship of the Ring, Two
Oh,
Towers, and Return
nice.
of the King, all in a row. It's probably the series I've read the most out of anything. Probably a dozen times over my lifetime.
Okay, wow.
But that is definitely a comfort read. Uh, I was just talking to my friend Christy, who runs Admiral Reads on Instagram. We were just talking about Return of the King, and I'm like, reading that book is such a comfort read because it's got such a good, wholesome ending and wraps a bow on it and everything, and is perfect.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I would read the Lord of the Rings trilogy on a rainy day if I could squeeze that in 24
Yeah,
hours.
if
Yeah.
if possible. All right, so let's say you had to pick a Star Wars movie and or show. It could be
Okay.
animated, whatever. What are you going with?
Oof. If I'm gonna do movie, it's gonna be Rogue One.
Nice.
In my opinion, that is on par with the original trilogy. It is perfection. That movie is perfection, along with the original trilogy, of course. But if it's going to be a show, let's go Clone Wars season 7.
Ooh, yeah, that's an excellent
Season
one.
7. Yeah, especially the last 4 episodes.
Yes.
Heartbreaking,
Yes.
heartbreaking, and tear jerking.
Yes, absolutely. That's some of my favorite. I know you and I talked off air about being in Anaheim, and one of my good memories from Anaheim is watching those last 3 episodes on the big screen with everybody. That
Oh,
was such a blast.
I
So
missed out on that.
yeah, it was pretty fun. So all right, and then favorite character and why?
I have 2.
Okay.
One of them is tattooed on my leg because he is the wisest being in the galaxy. And I had a weird moment one time when I actually traded a guy a bunch of comics for a free tattoo because
All right.
a buddy of mine was I think he was getting the Rebel Alliance symbol tattooed,
Oh, okay.
and I was just there to support him. And I was like, you know what? I would really love to get a Yoda tattoo. And this guy looked at me and he goes, I've never done one. I will do one for you right now. I'm like, well, I have no money on me right now, dude. I didn't bring anything. And he goes, what do you got to trade? I'm like, I could bring you a ton of comics tomorrow. And so we bartered, and he tattooed Yoda on my calf, on my left leg. So I have had Yoda on my leg since 2010. I'm a massive, massive fan of that wise little green alien. So he is one of them, and he has been like a lifelong favorite. I'm also a fan of Chewbacca
Nice.
because no one has been more loyal in the galaxy than Chewbacca. So you can always rely on him, no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's in my top 3 for sure. So
This little guy too, BD1.
BD1.
Yeah, probably my favorite droid,
Yeah.
easily. Yeah, so those are my go-to favorite characters.
All right. Well, awesome. Yeah, that's a great reasons. To kind of give everyone an idea where you're coming from with stuff. Then we're going to dive into this article we found on comicbook.com. I think I actually, let's see. Yeah, so on comicbook.com, it was written by Jack Ori, and it's 10 Star Wars theories that will change how you watch it. So the idea is, and I don't think these aren't necessarily the author's concepts. He's kind of borrowed them from other people, I believe. Now, some of
Okay.
these we'll be able to rip through pretty quickly because they've been talked to death. But then there's a few of them that I hadn't heard before, and so we'll be able to kind of dive into some of those. We're going to go a little out of order, folks. So if you do pull up comicbook.com and you go to it, we're going to go out of order a little bit. So let me pull that up here real quick. And we're going to start with number 3, which is a good one to start with because of who you just said is one of your favorite characters. So number 3 is Grogu is Yoda and Yaddle's son. And this is Grogu, and this is Jack's words. Grogu is one of the most powerful members of the Force, despite being portrayed as an intelligent toddler in The Mandalorian. He is of the same species as Yoda, but his parentage is unknown. However, fans have a theory that would change his status and Yoda's arc. Since Yaddle's disappearance in the Jedi Council from the time that Grogu should have been born, many fans assume Grogu is the product of Yoda and Yaddle. This theory would suggest that Yoda's species had a secret lineage. It would also make Grogu into Yoda's legacy rather than being an anomaly whose presence is mostly unexplained. That said, this arc would also mean that Yoda broke the Jedi Code forbidding romantic relationships, which would change his character. So this has been something that people have said really since everyone's met Grogu or Baby Yoda or the child, however you want to reference the little green guy. What are your thoughts when you hear this? Like, because we do have preference. I was looking it up. Was it Ki-Adi-Mundi was allowed? I think in EU. I'm not sure if it's canon, but he was allowed to have wives because his species was dying.
Yeah, he had multiple. Ki-Adi-Mundi was a polygamist. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Yoda and Yaddle?
This reminds me of a conversation I had with a coworker of mine who tried telling me that Yoda and Yaddle are brother and sister. And I looked at him and I said, no, they're absolutely not. They're also like 400 years apart in age. And he goes, yes, they are. And then he walked away and he said, dude, read a book once in a while. And I looked at him and I said, excuse me? I'm like, I think you should read the book, dude, because no, they're not related. However, I don't think they were romantically involved. I feel that Yoda's species, Yoda and Yaddle species, even though it's never been named, I feel like they are on a higher, almost like monk-like level with their in tune with the Force. You know, how I don't think romantic relationships are even a blip on their radar. I don't think that's something they even consider because they are such, I think, on a higher plane than all the other Jedi. There's a reason that they are both grandmasters, because they are so in tune with the Force that they're beyond relationships or any physical connections with anyone. So I don't think they've had relationships. I mean, it's a funny theory, but I don't think they've had relationships. And I don't think Grogu is related to them in any way. I think they're purposely keeping it a mystery as to where Yoda comes from, and how they've even made it to the Jedi Temple in the first place. I believe it's a mystery for a reason. Whether we will ever get that answer or not, I don't know. But I think it's fun being shrouded in mystery.
Yeah, it's like the one thing I think will never get explained. It seems to me like everyone wants to explain everything away, but this is like that one thing that, plus the pressure to come up with something that would be good enough for Yoda, and even Yaddle, she's really grown in my hierarchy, given with the High Republic, and then with the Tales episodes that she's in.
That was heartbreaking.
Yes, you know that. So, yeah, this theory is kind of silly. It's just kind of a fun one to start off with. I know as soon as, I mean, some people, I mean, the name Baby Yoda suggested it's Yoda, and trying to explain to someone outside of Star Wars that's not really Yoda. I mean, that's hard enough as it is. So, you know,
it could be that they multiply like Mogwai.
What's that?
Maybe he's an offspring of Yoda because they multiply like Mogwai.
Oh yeah, got him wet.
I mean, they got the same ears like Gizmo.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's just a fun one. Not sure it's really relevant to anything, but kind of a good one to start off with, especially given Yoda's your favorite, one of your favorites.
I think, though, if they ever did decide to reveal where Yoda is from or what his species is named, I think Disney owes that to George Lucas to finally allow him to name it. I think that is a major, major thing they need to defer to him to, regardless if he's not involved anymore. Like, that still has to be his decision. I think, like, Disney owes that to him.
Yeah, I mean, I say it ends up, I don't think it'll ever happen, just for the fact, like, I just think there's too much pressure on. You know, it's just, I mean, even if it's the perfect idea, not everyone, you know, half the fandom's going to hate it and half the fandom's going to love it, and it's just going to start another war. But yeah, I would agree with you. Like, it would be decent of them to like reach out and be like, hey, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
But I would
Were
think
you
that
were you ever going to answer this? Like, is it on one of your yellow notepads? Are you ever going to answer it?
that would be something too. Is there an answer out there? Like, has Dave and uh, George talked about this? This much time as they spent together. Introducing, bringing Yaddle into it. Then the concept of Grogu. Just that slippery slope. Is there background? Do they have background? It would be kind of crazy to find out.
Yeah, if anyone knows George's secrets, it's Dave.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure. So, let's see. What's the next one we got here? Okay, so this is a Darth Bane one. So kind of, so number 6 on this list. Again, we're going out of order just because some of them, just for the fun of it here. But it's well known that according to Sith lore, apprentices absorb their master's knowledge. Like two Anakin's theory. Well, we'll get to that. This fact is widely assumed to be metaphorical, which would make sense in the context of the franchise. However, if the absorption is literal, meaning that each new apprentice absorbs the soul of their master, yikes, then Darth Bane is more or less immortal, transferring his essence from one apprentice to another through generations of Sith training. This theory would explain why Sidious lives for so long, his culmination of each of Bane's lifetimes. This reading of lore suggests that the entire idea of training Siths is a con game by Bane to make himself immortal, which sounds like a very Sith thing to do, right? I mean,
yes,
but I
and
don't
no.
know. I don't have the background in the Bane novels like you do. I know that we get some Bane in Clone Wars.
Yeah,
Yoda has a run-in with his ghost.
in
Well,
season
not
6
necessarily ghost, but
or season 5.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on, and it kind of would tie into a little bit of episode 9 where he's like, I'm all the Sith and she's all the Jedi. I'm assuming this kind of stems from that, the rule of 2, where there's only 2, and it would, Sith seem to be obsessed with living forever. So, what are your thoughts on this one?
Thoughts on that? I believe it's in the second Bane novel, Dynasty of Evil. I think that's the name of it, Dynasty of Evil. He is traveling around because he's faced with his own mortality because he's covered in obelisks surrounding his body. They're all attached to him. They're a parasite. They're sucking his life energy, and they're drawing on his life. And so that's why but it also makes him more powerful because he's using on the anger and the pain and stuff to drive his need for looking for immortality. So there is a part where he's going around to all the different Sith temples that have been long abandoned for thousands of years, and I believe he goes to the temple of Darth Endedu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I think it's Endedu, who he heard rumors that had discovered the secrets to essence transfer.
Okay.
So he goes there. I think that's actually where I think that might be where he actually gets attacked by the parasites, and they attach to his body. But he discovers the secrets, and he eventually, I think it's in the battle with his apprentice Darth Zana in the 3rd book, where he attempts to do it to her, where he does the essence transfer because he knows he's dying. He knows it throughout the whole 3rd novel. He keeps talking about it. And so he attempts to do it to her, and after their whole battle, it's kind of ambiguous as to whether he's able to do it or not. They kind of allude to that he does, because all of a sudden at the very end of it, when she or the two of them fight, she has the same hand twitch or something that he had throughout the entire novel, kind of implying that he was able to do that force transfer to her, or essence transfer to her, and he's living inside of her now. So that's the whole point or the whole thing behind trying to transfer into another body when your body withers away, similar to what Palpatine was doing to clones,
Yeah.
That being said, I don't agree with this point because I don't think Darth Bane lived. I mean, they haven't explained any further than the Darth Bane novels as to whether he was. I mean, if he did, we wouldn't have seen his ghost around the Sith temple of, what was he on, Morban, when Yoda was on Morban. So. We would not have seen his Force ghost or the Sith ghost, whatever that was, flying if he were able to transfer it to another body. We wouldn't have seen it. So that being said, I don't think Darth Bane is going through Sith to Sith to Sith down the line all the way to Palpatine, because the entire thing was what Bane did when he disrupted the whole Sith Academy was he saw that the Sith were becoming weak because the dark side of the Force was being spread too thin. So he said, let's concentrate it all in one person, a master and an apprentice. A master to harness the power, the apprentice to crave it. So that's why he tricked them into being wiped out entirely by the I think it was called the Army of Light, the Jedi from the Darth Bane novels with General Hoth, where I think they trapped them all inside of what they called a thought bomb. So they trapped all the Sith and all the Jedi inside of it, and then Darth Bane was the only one left because he was master chess player, and he was after that he was the only one left, and then he found his apprentice on the same planet, and then he was like, now there will be only two of us, one to harness the power and one to crave it, and that's when he created the rule of two, because he understood that to make the dark side more powerful, it must be one person holding all of the dark side. And I think that's what makes the Sith powerful, is it's one person holding all of the secrets, and then they pass it on to their apprentice when the apprentice kills them. So no, I don't believe it's Bane transferring his essence over and over and over and over again. Cool concept.
Yeah.
However, no, I don't think that's the whole point of the Sith passing on their knowledge to the next generation.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm not really buying it myself. Kind of a fun idea. Kind of, I guess it ties a little bit into the ninth movie where he wants to like go into Rey or whatever,
Right.
But I don't.
And I think that's him trying to do exactly what Bane did.
Yeah.
Yeah, strike me down and you shall become more powerful, all that stuff. Yeah. I think that's the same concept.
Yeah.
But it's transferring from one body to another, like a one-time thing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's a good one too. So the next one we're gonna scroll down to number 1. Darth Sidious was behind the Clone Wars long before Episode 1. Now this one, I'll read it, but I mean it's basically it's well known that Darth Sidious planned to use clones to help him cause a war and set himself up as galactic leader. However, his plan was impeccable timing, with the Camino clone army rapidly becoming ready to fight, and everything seems almost too smoothly orchestrated. Many fans explain this by theorizing that Darth Sidious's plan, began long before anything that was seen on screen. Under this theory, the prequel trilogy isn't about an improvised plan to spark a war between the Jedi and the Sith. Instead, a trilogy is at the end stage of a long game that has gone on for centuries, making Sidious's plans even more chilling. I would say this is basically just Darth Plagueis' book, right? I mean, Plagueis put all this stuff into place. Another, more fans falling back on the EU, I guess. It's funny. We talked, we don't have anything we can fall back on, when we're telling these stories. But
okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like this one just kind of wraps up into Darth Sidious and Darth Plagueis' story. If you've read it out there, if you haven't read it out there, it's one of the ones like you shouldn't read it because you're going to want it to be a movie. You're going to want it to be canon, I think, because it's an amazing story. But what are your thoughts on this?
When I read that, after you sent it to me and I read that theory, I'm like, duh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Like all the way, I think it even goes all the way back to Tenebris. Darth Tenebris before Plagueis was a good planner. And then Plagueis even expanded upon that, and he was an even better planner than Tenebris was. And then you get to Palpatine, and Palpatine from day one was a mastermind chess player, knew how to move the pieces in his favor. I think there's even stories of him doing stuff like this as a teenager in the books and the comics too, where it's like, yeah, of course he was behind it all. I think he was the one who, as Sidious, or not, who was it when, was it, Cypher Dyas.
Yeah, Master Cypher Dyas.
Right, and who was also behind that? Dooku.
Yep.
And who was influencing Dooku? Sidious. So, yeah. I think absolutely Palpatine was behind that all, even before before Phantom Menace. He had it all planned out.
Even without the Plagueis novel, I mean, it's just not. I mean, to say that he just kind of was winging it during the prequels is kind of an insane theory. Like to be like, oh yeah, this mastermind Sith Lord just kind of it just kept working out for him. That's just kind of
No.
so, folks, if you haven't read Darth Plague, is it just called Plagueis or is it Darth Plagueis? I can't see my copy of it from here, but it is really, really good. It will make James Lucerno, I believe, wrote it. So really good story. It weaves into the prequels a bit. There we go. Yeah, beautiful artwork.
You're right. It is James Luceno.
Yeah. So
yeah, it is him.
Nice. All right. So basically, just a shout out to
even better the Inkstone version.
Yes,
we'll support that copy there.
Oh, that's really sweet. Do you think we could a young Palpatine TV series would be a good way for Disney to go? Do you think there's enough there?
They need to do it right.
That's always the case with everything, right? I mean, they gotta.
Yeah, that needs to be. They need to be okay with making a borderline rated R Star Wars show. Yeah, not rated R as far as like violence or anything else that like would make something a rated R, but like just because of how dark it needs to be. Just the dark content of constantly dealing with the dark side of the Force and have it being an ever-present thing over the shoulder of Palpatine. It would need to be something as dark as is, like almost like Andor dark, when you get like the Gorman massacre. It needs to give you that same feeling, but also the sense of dread. Yeah. I would absolutely love it. They have the material to work with, but they need to be okay with going as dark as possible.
Yeah. Do you think Disney would do that though? I mean, after Andor's success, maybe
find the right writer, and director, and absolutely. I know the fans want it.
Yes. I think you'd have to have the right writer. You got to have the right actor to be playing a young Palpatine. There's a lot riding on it, but you could do it. It just, man, I'm sitting here trying to think of someone off the top of my head that could do it. And I mean, it'd have to be one of these authors, I think, not a script writer, but an author. Like have them write.
Yeah. I'm not sure like if they would have, I mean, writing screenplays is so different than writing a book, but I'm sure they could do it, or at least a group of authors who have dealt with some of the more darker novels. Yeah.
All right.
That would be cool.
All right. Number 9's a bit of a throwaway. Jar Jar Binks was secretly a Sith Lord. Wah, wah, wah. I'm glad Lego had some fun with it.
Yeah, they did.
But that's about as far as I'd like to take it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, it is a well thought out, and I listened to Ahmad Best a couple years ago at Rebel Scum Con down in Texas talk about this concept, and he's like, "Yeah, it makes sense." Of course, he's going to say that he's Jar Jar Binks, but I can never. Jar Jar's not one of my favorite characters. Sorry, Charlie, if you're listening. She loves Jar Jar, but for me, it just no. Really fun theory, really creative. The person who came up with it, well done. But for me, I'm gonna have to pass on that one.
It almost, when you read the theory of it, it almost sounds like you're reading someone's dissertation for their PhD. That they've thought about it really well, and it's very well drawn out. It makes sense when you read the theories, but there's just no way. Like, he somehow, or maybe like somehow because he's such a bumbling idiot and things work out for him, maybe he's actually tapped into the Force and doesn't realize it. Yeah. The same way that people think like Han Solo might be tapped into the Force because he's such a good pilot. It's just no way. And I love how Disney has had fun with it by doing the Rebuild the Galaxy with the Lego.
Yeah.
That was fun, and it is a fun theory. And I think the biggest thing that draws me to actually considering it is when he is at the Senate and he talks about giving emergency powers to the Chancellor. But it's very clear that he was influenced by Palpatine in the previous conversation in Palpatine's office, where he's sitting there mulling it around in his brain, going, "Well, maybe I can nominate the Chancellor to having emergency powers," and it's clear that he's influenced.
Yeah.
And he's not acting on his own volition in any way. He's just doing what he thinks is right. But I do love the theory because it is so far-fetched and also makes sense at the same time.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not sure who claims credit for it, but yeah, it's really well thought out. And to even come up with that concept, you sit back and you watch like the Clone Wars and you watch some of those episodes, like, oh, well, maybe. But as far as I want Star Wars to take it, they have Lego Star Wars specials. I think that's a good for it personally. So,
on that same subject, though, how amazing was that moment when Ahmed Best showed up as Kelleran Beck in?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, when he saves Grogu from the temple, and he gets his redemption after that.
I feel like, yeah, that is so rewarding for the actor. Because I'm on record of not liking Jar Jar. Like, the character drives me insane, but I love Ahmed Best. Like,
yeah, right.
And I'm not gonna sit there and like lie about it. Like, oh no, I love Jar Jar. Like, I don't. But seeing him get to be Kelleran Beck, I thought that was like, for sometimes Disney seems to do things kind of wonky sometimes, but that felt like really heartfelt to me. Like they're like, hey, here's an opportunity that we're going to give you. You deserved it for everything you've gone through in your life because of Jar Jar. And, you've heard most of us have heard his story about being on the bridge and almost, ending things. But yeah, I would put that up there with Luke Skywalker showing up in the Mando. Like,
oh my God, I can't talk about that moment without tearing up. I can't do it. I can't do that.
Just on
Ahmed Best showing up. I think. I had my theories, and I was hoping that it was going to be Quinlan Vos.
Yeah,
one of my favorite Jedi. But seeing Ahmed Best there, I stood up and cheered. I stood up from my couch and screamed because I'm like, he absolutely deserved that 100%.
Yeah, and I love how they're taking his character and they've brought him into the comics, the Jedi Knights comic. He just showed up in number 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
As a person, he really loves teachers. He was talking about this a couple of years ago and how he wants to do more with teaching and helps people out. And so, like, that's his character. And Kelleran Beck was a teacher working with the younglings and stuff. Right. So I think it was a pretty cool and passionate a guy, and it's cool that he's pulling that into that story. And they do when they want to, they do a great job of integrating new things and making them feel like they've always been there.
Right.
Like when they plan it out. I don't want to harp on that, but like when they plan stuff out, they show that they can really do it. And Kelleran Beck is, they just kind of piecing him in there and, things like that. I really enjoy it. So yeah, that was a great moment though.
Yeah, that was it was great because it was a puzzle piece that fit perfectly in that spot. And it gave the person exactly what he deserved. After everything he's been through, he absolutely deserved that moment.
Yeah, I loved it for him. So we just got done, talking Darth Jar Jar. So we're going to talk about another possible galactic puppet master.
Who's this one?
This is going to be R2-D2 is secretly the galactic puppet master. Now, this little guy, I do think he's the hero of the movies, but this is the author's words here. R2-D2 is a beloved character, but some fans have a darker theory for why he appears at almost every crucial moment in the war between the Empire and the Rebels. He is secretly the puppet master who is controlling both sides of the battle. Okay. The seemingly bizarre theory is supported by the fact that R2-D2 avoids having his memory wiped throughout the entire saga, which does happen to C-3PO a couple times, which allows him to share information about the entire Skywalker family and the rise of the Empire as needed. Furthermore, he often makes independent decisions, such as playing Leia's message to Luke to convince Luke to train Rey. And this behavior seems like it is beyond the capabilities of an astromech droid. This theory changes the entire saga. R2-D2 would no longer be simply a loyal servant of the Jedi's, but a puppet master who orchestrated the fall of the Empire for his own reasons. Additionally, some fans take it a step further, suggesting R2-D2 is the vessel for Darth Plagueis in seeking revenge on Palpatine. This theory would make the droid scenes take a dark turn that completely changes their meaning. So Yeah, I've never heard this one. I mean, I've heard, R2 and C3PO are the heroes behind the scenes. They always seem like without R2D2, I don't think the rebellion ever wins anything. But so what do you think? Darth Plagueis is possessing R2D2?
No, no. What isn't there a story where a one of the droids? It's I think one of the certain point of view stories where one of the droids actually taps into the Force or something like that.
Oh man,
Um,
I'm trying to think.
this is a very funny theory, but I don't think it holds any weight whatsoever. If anything, R2D2 is the chronicler and storyteller of the entire saga. He's recorded everything. His memory's never been wiped. He remembers everybody, every event from these major events in the galaxy. He was there. He was present. No, he's the storyteller. I a lot of times in my mind, I equate George Lucas with R2 because they are both the storyteller of this saga, and I feel like he has a connection with this droid because this droid has been present and told the story of everything. And I know there's the what does C3PO say? Thank the maker. Oh, thank the maker. And in a way, I think that's kind of who R2 is because he is the storyteller of this entire saga. And another thing that solidified that for me a few years ago is when I was reading the 2015 Jason Aaron Star Wars comic book run. I was able to get a copy of a variant cover of issue number 1, and I had a cool experience with it too because I took it to Jason Aaron at Comic-Con and had him sign it, and he was stared at this cover and he said of all the variant covers of his 2015 run, this one is by far his favorite because not only is Mike Del Mundo one of the best comic book cover artists out there, but he said this completely encapsulates what the Star Wars universe is, and it's R2 telling the story. And I'm not going to go find the comic right now in my collection, but this is what it looks like. There's R2 at the bottom, projecting the entire story of the saga.
Nice.
And I'm like that just reinforced how I feel who R2 is. He's the storyteller of all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a little bit far-fetched. I do agree with you though. Without the droid, I mean, yeah, he just kind of, it's I almost kind of feels like how like in the Dragonlance novels, the gods are kind of always like walking around and they interfere a little bit here and there and things like that. But
They're meddling.
Yeah, so like it's kind of how R2 just kind of there helping out, telling the story. When all these heroes are gone, he'll be the droid that they could, someone could find and tap into and tell all these, ancient stories or whatever. I think that'd be pretty cool. So,
but yeah, and he does influence a couple things. Like if you read a certain point of view from A New Hope, I think it's R.F. Kuang wrote the red one where he's talking to R5 and he's like, "You got to bust your motivator." Because they need to buy me because I got the stolen plans. And so, like, yeah, he does influence here and there. However, he's there to not only help the rebellion, but he's also there to record and tell the story. Most importantly.
Absolutely. All right. Yes. This next one I've never heard before. It's a little bit weird. Number 8, Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader are two separate beings. The entire film series is based on the idea that Anakin became the evil Darth Vader when he turned to the dark side. Spoiler alert, everyone. And the prequel trilogy was meant to explain how that transformation happened. However, the change in Anakin's personality between Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith has given rise to the theory that the version of Anakin who became Darth Vader is not the same person who was featured in the earlier parts of the trilogy. Opponents of this theory argue that Anakin is only metaphorically Darth Vader, or different than Darth Vader, that he chose to change for the worse and embrace his identity as Darth Vader, and this is what Yoda and Obi-Wan meant when they described Anakin as gone or consumed by the darkness. However, the existence of a clone technology, here we go, suggests that Anakin and Darth Vader could literally be two different people. I feel like, and I don't know the author, I don't have any background, but some of the stuff that he's saying in some of these theories, it's like he hasn't watched any of the supplemental stuff. Like he doesn't watch Clone Wars. He hasn't watched Tales of, because there's some things like some of his theories, and like again, I don't know where he's pulling these theories from, but this is a new one to me that this is a different Anakin. This is a clone. Like I don't know why that would even be a thing.
I feel like there's a couple things that could support it, where I think if you read like the Dark Empire comics, that's when Palpatine was going heavy on cloning himself, and making just empty clones so that he can transfer his essence, like we were talking about with Darth Bane. And I think that's where this author is running with it, where they had clones of Anakin ready to send like the dark side of Anakin's soul into, or something like that, to create Darth Vader. But I mean, we've seen on film, Anakin is still the same body. It's the same person. It's not a clone inside Darth Vader's suit. We saw him being put together at the end of Revenge of the Sith. We witnessed the entire thing. Interesting theory. There are things to support it. However, I think it's dead in the water there. That no, he killed mentally and emotionally killed Anakin so that Vader can survive. He went through too much pain, too much anguish, too much loss, and too much hurt, to where he's mentally stuffed Anakin down so that he could mentally survive. And that's why he says Anakin's gone, that I am what remains, in the Kenobi series, which is a survival mechanism, a defense mechanism when it comes to psychotherapy or psychology and all that. It's basically he's become a sociopath, where he's able to stuff down all those emotions of who he was. I mean, we saw it bubbling up in Attack of the Clones when he kills all the Tusken Raiders. We saw it come up when Clone Wars, when he kills what was that tarantula looking general that he killed?
Oh my gosh.
That he just impaled and walked away from with no remorse. So we saw all these signs of he was tapping into the dark side and allowing himself to do things that he shouldn't have been doing. So it's not a clone. It's him giving in to the dark side. Yeah.
That theory kind of like, I feel like that person's missing some of the stuff that we know. It's like you see it in Clone Wars. I think that's the whole point of the Clone Wars, was to bridge that gap, so that fall, because it does happen. If you just watched 1, 2, and 3, then I can see maybe you think that could be a switch, because it doesn't make sense, because it is a pretty big drastic change. But you had 7 seasons of the Clone Wars in there, and you're like, oh. Because I always loved in those, especially towards the end, whenever he'd start getting angry. I remember the ones where Padme's with like that ex-boyfriend of hers or whatever, and Clovis, whatever his name is, and Anakin's getting so mad, and you can see like these little like hints of like Vader coming out at him, just with the temper and stuff like that. And I always thought that was well played by the writers of the Clone Wars, just to kind of give us a little bit, like just scratch that surface a little bit, so we know like, oh yeah, this is coming.
Yep.
And there. So
when I was in the theaters watching the 20th or 25th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, or no, 20th anniversary, I remember thinking that, going, wow, his decline and fall to the dark side in this movie alone was way too quick.
Yeah.
But if you have that background of the Clone Wars, you understand it a lot better, going, okay, he was already on that path. But if you only watch the movies and that's all you know, you're just like, wow, like that is a lot of emotions over someone who was just told no a couple times by the Jedi Council, you know. And I was talking to my friend Zane over at he's at My Two Credits on Instagram. He thought the exact same thing. Like Anakin fell way too quickly in Revenge of the Sith. So you definitely need that Clone Wars background to make it make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Number 4, again, this kind of flies in the face of some of the comics, but the Knights of Ren were Luke's surviving students.
The Knights of Ren are portrayed on screen as villainous religious order that is dedicated to serving Kylo Ren and destroying the Jedis. But if they were Luke's surviving students, they are more tragic than evil. Supposedly, the Knights are untrained, while Ben Solo was trained by Luke Skywalker before turning to the dark side. However, the sequel trilogy suggests that Luke had other trainees. Thus, many fans theorize that the Knights were students that Kylo Ren convinced to join him, and who thus turned to the dark side with him. This would suggest that Kylo Ren's squad is made up of friends who had also fallen to the dark side, adding emotional depth to the Knights of Ren saga. Huh. So,
This
what
one's
do you think?
This one's crazy off the map. I mean, they never show any force powers. You know, they're all using weapons that aren't lightsabers. If they were all, because if you look at was a 5-run comic, the Kylo Ren comic, I mean, it shows kind of how that plays. And I know Star Wars will retcon things from the comics. They do it all the time. But again, I think this may be just a lack of background knowledge by the author. Because I just don't see this as because the Knights of Ren, I mean, they run into them when they're kids. Like young Ben Solo meets them in the comics.
Right.
And then, eventually he takes the Ren's place and becomes Kylo Ren. So I wish there was more to them other than the Chevy truck commercial standing on the mountain with the helicopter flying around them looking cool, because they do look cool. But, and I feel like they've really, almost Captain Phasma then with like all this cool, what could have been a really cool characters, and just did nothing with them. So
yeah,
I think this theory this might be the worst theory.
I think also
top 10.
Also, they're trying really hard right now in the comics to expand on the Knights of Ren in the Legacy. I think it's the Legacy of Vader series. Yeah, they're trying. And this is the part where I'm going to lack in knowledge because I have not read more of the later novels in canon. I'm currently trying to read the entire saga chronologically, and I am at the end of High Republic.
Okay,
I've taken a quick pause because I'm reading all the fantasy stuff right now. But when I get there, I'm sure I'll have more knowledge on it. So it's interesting. I think the theory is kind of cool how like all of the Knights of Ren could be Luke's other students at the academy, and they're all kind of taking revenge on this because they all had something against Luke. But I think that takes away from Luke's character if they all or that angry that they have something that they need to take up arms against what the Jedi are or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting theory, but I don't have enough knowledge just because I haven't read enough about the Knights of Ren in the books or comics. I think the only thing that would take away from that is the most recent articles that have come out where I think Leslie Headland was saying that the stranger from Acolyte was going to be the original Knight of Ren and then expand their line from there. If that's the case and that's what Disney wants, then obviously that it won't be the case that Luke's students were the Knights of Ren, or the original Knights of Ren at least, because that takes place 50 years later in the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. I mean, it's a cool theory that could be the possibility.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a stretch to me. But again, I know that Disney has no problem retconning comics, like we've seen it. So, not major changes, but changes. So I just don't see this happening. I guess, like I agree with you completely. This would, like, we do see Luke having that moment of weakness when it comes to Kylo or comes to Ben.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that deciding moment where he decides he's going to go that route. But for that many people, that many students to be upset with Luke Skywalker to throw, I just, again, I agree with you completely. I just don't see that happening, in universe. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I'm going to have to take a hard pass on the Knights of Ren being Luke's, because they'd have to be really young too, though. Well, I guess, he dies. Sometimes the timeline gets confused in my head because I don't feel like Chimeras that's far enough back for the Knights of Ren to really be established. I feel like they would be even older, but I don't know, because the Acolyte is the end of the High Republic, which is kind of right before the prequel series, so it wouldn't give a lot of time for them to build that up. Like these Knights I guess in my head canon that they're kind of an ancient under the radar group. Given like phase 2 of the High Republic, where you had all those different Force users and the convocation of the Force on Jeddah.
Okay.
It starts to spread the idea that there's so many different groups out there using the Force, not just the Jedi and the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
That's just that's probably my own headcanon getting in the way of, fact, if you will, for this fiction.
We would have to Charlie Day it. We would have to Charlie Day it and put strings across the room to sit there and connect everything.
Absolutely have to. So, but all right. Number 7, Palpatine wanted to possess Luke in Return of the Jedi. The showdown between Palpatine and Luke in Return of the Jedi is one of the most discussed scenes in the franchise. Palpatine dares Luke to give in to his anger and kill him, which would presumably turn Luke to the dark side like his father. Some fans also think Palpatine just wanted to watch Luke and Vader fight and knew his words would provoke the battle that ensued. However, the events of the Rise of Skywalker suggest that an even darker theory. Palpatine was near death and he knew it, so in his weakened state, he needed Luke to cross over to the dark side in order to be able to bind his spirit to him. This theory is supported by the similarity between Palpatine's taunt of Luke and his words to Rey later. This darker reading of events would suggest Palpatine saw Luke as merely a vessel for his own immortality, making him more evil than ever. It also makes Darth Vader's sacrifice of his own life even more powerful. If this theory is correct, Vader didn't just want to save Luke's life, but also his soul, which makes his final transformation back to Anakin even more poignant. That kind of makes sense as far as, if you want to tie in Return of the Jedi with the Rise of Skywalker, and that was his plan, I could see that. I'm not going to sit there and nitpick that apart. I mean, it's fine, I guess, as a theory. I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
I'm going to respectfully disagree.
Good.
Because I'm going good. I'm going to keep in mind this was written by George Lucas, not by Disney.
Okay.
George Lucas did not have a plan for Palpatine to take over Rey Skywalker back in 1983.
Nice. Yeah.
So that being said, the story that George was trying to say was the love of a father for his son was a lot stronger than the dark side of the Force. So what I think was happening was Palpatine was trying to manipulate Luke into tapping in the dark side to defeat his father. Because even though he knew he had Anakin Skywalker as a half machine, half man, he thought maybe I can go back and get someone as an apprentice who's even more powerful as Luke to defeat him, and I can have this as my apprentice so I can pass on all my knowledge of the Sith and everything. I don't think he wanted to force or transfer his essence into Luke at all. I just think he wanted a more powerful apprentice to defeat Darth Vader, to see who would be, the victor of the two. But I strongly believe that George Lucas was telling the story that not only is the light side more powerful, but the love of a father for his son, and vice versa, the love of a son for his father, will be infinitely more powerful than the dark side of the Force. And I think that's a story that he was trying to say, is love and light is always more powerful than dark. It had nothing to do with transferring into another being.
I would agree with you 100%. 100%. I mean, that's exactly what I think George was trying to say. It's kind of scary to me that sometimes people start to try to blend these, because you got this, you got 6 of them written by George, or not necessarily written by George, but George's influence over them, and then you have these final 3, and you're trying to and I get it, you're trying to meld them together. These people are trying to meld these, and that's fine. Because if you look at it from how we saw it when we were kids, he either kills Vader, Luke does, and Palpatine's got a better apprentice, because
that's not half machine.
Yeah, that's not half machine. Or Vader kills Luke and is even more angry. Is going to have even more anger and rage because he killed his son. Now killed his wife, killed his son. I mean, the rage and anger.
Yeah.
Either way, Palpatine wins without having to transfer.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, so I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to kind of meld the endings of those trilogies together, which makes sense. You kind of want that continuity, but I do believe that you closer to the truth where George is telling a certain story in those first three,
Mm-hmm.
and that maybe some of that gets lost in the storytelling of the last three,
Right.
in a way. So
Yeah, and I think the author of that theory is trying to make it more seamless between the two trilogies as to Palpatine's intentions. However, you got two different writers, two different directors, decades apart, telling two different stories. No, it's not the same story, and it's not the same intention. But it is a great theory. And yeah.
I like your theory better though on that one. So well done, sir. You should write. You need to give us a top 10 list. Number 2, Rey was meant to literally replace Palpatine. Okay, let's read this one. The Rise of Skywalker established that Rey was Palpatine's granddaughter, and that he expected her to continue the Palpatine line after his death, which was thwarted when she rejected his heritage and became a Skywalker instead. However, this film also established the idea that Palpatine could possess someone. Thus, he's really obsessed with possessions. This guy. Thus, many fans believe that Palpatine was hoping to bind his essence to his granddaughter's body so that he could continue to live after his physical body was gone. This theory would make Rey's decision to reject her Palpatine heritage even more poignant. As it is, she is the mirror image of Anakin, as she is born into the Empire's ruling family but chooses to reject it. But if she rejected not only the opportunity to be the new empress, but the use of her body as a vessel for her grandfather's spirit, the strength of this theme is even stronger. First off, how do you feel about her being a Palpatine?
Uh, Either way, I don't care. I'm not a hater of the sequel trilogy. I respect them. They're there. They exist. They're not my favorite, but they're there, and I have to accept it. However, I don't care whether she's a Palpatine. I know a lot of people, or the fact that she calls herself Skywalker now. I don't care. I think all the memes out there are really funny of them people saying that like you're not a Skywalker just because you say you are. I think they're funny, but I know there was a lot of speculation, and I think original writings of the script were saying that she was going to be related to Obi-Wan somehow.
That's what I was pulling for.
So, and I know a lot of people were, and I think I may be wrong in this, but I think a lot of original scripts had her being related to Obi-Wan Kenobi somehow. That being said, I don't think the original plan was for her to be a Palpatine. I think that was something they changed at the end. I think J.J. Abrams even said that it was changed later on. I'd have to look it up to find out if he actually did say that and find the sources. But I'm pretty sure that I've heard other people cite sources where he said that it was changed at the end for her to be a Palpatine. I don't remember the original question because that was a long one.
Yeah, no, it's just yeah. So
was the plan for her to originally become Palpatine and take over?
Kind of the same concept.
Not at the beginning. I don't think at the beginning. I don't think at the beginning when they originally started writing the original or the sequel trilogy, I don't think they knew at the very beginning of writing it that she was going to be related in some way to Palpatine. I think that was something that was written in along the way.
Yeah, I feel like that was written in when they got to that part in the movie. Like, oh, we got to have her related to someone. How are we going to do this? It's this sequence. Those 3 movies frustrate me beyond belief. Just, I like them. I enjoy them. Like I kind of like you are. Like I enjoy parts of them, but just the lack of planning frustrates me beyond belief on something this important. And you look at the High Republic and how well that was planned out, and other things. You can sit there and see like they're capable of it. But yeah, this is just kind of similar to some of those other ones about Luke and things like that. Him possessing her and carrying on, becoming Empress Palpatine instead of Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
But and it kind of pulls that Darth Bane concept where like they just keep passing, their bodies along. This seems kind of like this one's a bit of a stretch, I think. But I mean, it is kind of what he wanted, I guess maybe just the fact that she took the Skywalker last name was like the big kick in the face at the end. Like, yeah, she's going to try to defeat him because he's evil. But at the end, she's like, because why not change the outlook of the name? Why not be a Rey Palpatine? Like, look, we're not all bad. You know what I mean? Or um,
Um,
is it?
I think that the reason they did that is to show that the name Skywalker will always defeat the name Palpatine at the end. I think that was the point that Disney and Lucasfilm was trying to make at the end of it. Is like, no matter what, Skywalker will always prevail. And I get the fact that they were, and I respect the fact that they were doing that. I know a lot of people were like that they laughed at that. A lot of people were angry at that. It didn't bother me. Like, people adopt names all the time based on. Here's something that we haven't mentioned yet, but everyone in every other podcast I hear, they talk about Star Wars. One of the big things about Star Wars is found family.
Yeah.
So that's a major thing. And she considers Luke a father of hers, or a father figure in a way. And so, yeah, if you adopt the name of who you connect with, who you want to be, I get it. I think that's just Disney saying the Skywalker name will always prevail. I will say, however, that I have a lot of theories that the idea of Rey, they pulled from a comic book that was written back in 2010, I think it was, where the Star Wars Legacy comics. There was one written about the great granddaughter of Han and Leia named Anya Solo, and who was a scavenger who started tapping into the Force and realizing her power later on. But the series was canceled when Disney took over, and Marvel took over from Dark Horse Comics.
Yeah.
You read those comics and you go, this looks like Rey Palpatine. Looks like her, acts like her, same story, same origins. It's weird coincidence that all of a sudden we get a movie 3 years later that has a very, very similar character.
I would agree. Yeah. Again, it's a similar. It's funny, we talked about that at the very beginning of this. Like, oh, there's no content for us, but yet they they continuously are pulling from it. Because even in Starfighter, there's all these talks about, some of the Dark Horse comic stuff coming into Starfighter and stuff. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, there's lots of stuff from the pull from. We got one last one here, and this one I'll have to say that I had never heard before. It makes a lot more. Some of these are so theoretical and kind of far fetched, in my opinion. Like, I didn't really. I see what they're trying to do, but this first one, and it's the very first one, number 10,
the Palpatine
one. So
yeah,
Palpatine let Mace Windu win on purpose. So Palpatine's behavior during the duel with Mace Windu in Revenge of the Sith has led to one of the biggest fan controversies in Star Wars history. Although the two fighters are evenly matched, Windu disarms Palpatine, leaving the evil Emperor, almost helpless and forcing him to beg Anakin to turn to the dark side to help him. Too many fans sorry, Palpatine's behavior is out of character. He's not supposed to act like a helpless victim. He is a strong fighter who shouldn't have been disarmed. However, if Palpatine lost to Windu on purpose, that completely changes the scene. So basically, I mean, you can kind of see it. Like, he wails on Kit Fisto, Eithkoff, was it Saucy Tin? He takes out within like a matter of like 5 seconds. And then, 30 seconds later, Mace has him laying down and he's acting like all heck's breaking loose. This, to me, would make Palpatine even more cunning and evil, kind of seducing Anakin even more, and just kind of closing that door to the light for Anakin if he really did manipulate the situation the way he did. This one is one of the few ones on this list I'm like, I can get behind that. Like, this one makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of credit to that one. Knowing how much Palpatine is a master manipulator, I would absolutely agree that makes a lot of sense. We know that Palpatine is willing. I think he was very much willing to put himself in harm's way to force Anakin to act, because he knew if Anakin did act, that would be the ultimate change that would that would make him go down the path and never return. Um, there's also you have to think the people who are most powerful in the Force, like Yoda, Luke Skywalker, Palpatine. You got to remember that they, at certain points in their lifespan, have seen visions of the Force, and when you get visions from the Force, what Yoda says, the what does he say? The Force is always moving, ever present, always shrouded in mystery.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, there are times when you think like the Force, when it shows visions, it's showing you what could happen, not what will happen. So you got to think about, did Palpatine see this coming and know that like these are the things I have to do to make this happen? Or did he have a vision and say like this is the only way? Did he manipulate Anakin into acting that way by acting helpless? The only thing that is telling me that no, that might not be true is because of Mace Windu is known to being one of the most, or one of the best lightsaber duelists in the Jedi Academy or in the Jedi Temple. I think he used I think it's Form 7 of the lightsaber dueling, which is, I think it's pronounced Vapad, Vaapad, which is one of the most aggressive types of lightsaber dueling, and it borderlines on the using the dark side to subdue your enemy. So the only thing that tells me that maybe this might not be true is because Mace may have been Palpatine's match.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Palpatine killed the other 3 Jedi right there at the doorway, including Kit Fisto, who was that broke my heart seeing Kit Fisto die. But the only thing, like, I haven't read, I have the book, but I have not read it yet. The was it Glass Abyss with the Mace Windu novel. Haven't read it yet, so that may show me more. But I think the fact that Mace is known for using that Form 7 could negate this theory.
Yeah. No, that's a good
say
point.
That, like, Mace may have done it. So.
Yeah, the Glass Abyss, it talks a little bit about it, I guess, about what he has to do to use that form. But that would make sense. He is considered one of the best duelists, like you said. I do kind of, I guess, when you lean into these theories, it's kind of like, well, does it work for you or not? You know what I mean? Like, this one would make sense to me because it's just like, this would just make him even that much more evil, like. But I can also see your point of view where, like, it would be easily to believe that Windu would be superior in lightsaber battles. But then you think about, like, the scene between, was it Savage, Palpatine, and Maul, and he just, like, lays waste to those fools, So, yeah, I wonder. This one, I could go either way on this one. This is a pretty good one to end on as well. But you'll have to let me know what you think of the Glass Abyss. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't like, doesn't really move the needle for me. But also Mace Windu is like one of my least favorite characters too. So I don't know if I was coming at it from like a fair standpoint, because I'm always looking to kind of nitpick him as a Jedi. Just he's so grumpy to me. Like, I feel like he would have been a better Sith Lord than a Jedi High Council member. You know what I mean? With his but
yeah. Like, I want to love Mace so badly because I love Samuel L. Jackson for so many reasons.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
Yeah, I want to give him credit where, like, the character and the actor, like, I want to give them credit where it's due. But I do see that point where maybe Palpatine was that much better in manipulating. Yeah, you never know.
For sure.
I want to believe it, but I also want to believe the opposite side of it as well. That Mace was just that awesome of a lightsaber duelist.
Yeah. No,
but
for
yeah,
sure.
He is grumpy. And he's the major reason why Anakin turned, because he was like the bad, or the angry parent the entire time of Revenge of the Sith.
Like, bullied him into it, I feel like. I mean, it's just,
yeah, especially that. I think especially that one of the final scenes with them together, and he goes, then you will finally earn my trust. It's like, finally?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I just feel like he's just so mean to everybody. Like, he's mean to Ahsoka, he's mean to Anakin. That's just like, man, he drives me bonkers. But All right. So, Justin, thank you for joining us. Folks, if you want
The
to check out comicbook.com, Jack Ori, 10 Star Wars theories that will change how you watch it. We kind of went out of order with it. So you go on there. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think of these theories. Justin, thank you so much for joining me. Tell everybody one more time where they can find you, what you do there, and then we will get you out of here.
I'm just Justin at the underscore. And there's underscores in between everywhere. Just it's the Nerdy Bookshelf with underscores in between all of it. Yeah, I just hang out there and talk about Star Wars. I talk about comics. I talk about books in general. I love to promote comic book artists and writers that I love, and just give them their space to shine. So, yeah, I just have fun out there nerding out on that page.
Awesome. Go give them a
Anytime.
follow, folks. And it's mostly Instagram, correct?
Yeah, it's only on Instagram.
Only on Instagram. Okay, perfect. Well, awesome,
Yeah.
Justin. Thank you so much.
No problem. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for hanging out.
Folks, make sure you go check out Justin at the Nerdy Bookshelf on Instagram. What an awesome Star Wars fan. What a great dude. I'm super glad to have him as part of our circle of friends now. To love that about Star Wars. The circle keeps getting larger and larger with just more positive Star Wars people. Well, let us know if any of those theories resonated with your headcanon, or send us some of your very best Star Wars theories. And to do that, simply just DM us on all of our socials, or send us an email or voice note at exploretheforce@gmail.com. Remember to like this episode, share it with your Star Wars friends and family. To follow us on all of our social media platforms, all you have to do is search Explore the Force, all one word. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, share it, and subscribe. Also, if you want to show your support and spread the word around by image as well as voice, then head over to Redbubble, search Explore the Force, where you can purchase unique merchandise. And a massive thank you to everyone interacting with us via our social media. You keep this podcast amazing. Finally, you've been listening to or watching Explore the Force, and we have spoken. We'll see you next week.
At the end, do you understand? Close your eyes. Feel it. I am a Senate.
As wise as Master Yoda, as powerful as Master Windu.
They'll do their job well. I'll guarantee that.
I am going to end this once and for all.
Chewie. We're home.
You were the chosen one!